I'm David Richardson, Director of Horticulture at the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, and I'm delighted to introduce Judith Blacklock from Judith Blacklock Flower School. We've been working together since 2017, and we've been working on sustainable, environmentally friendly wreaths, and Judith's going to do the how to make them video for everybody to use.
Hello, I'm Judith Blacklock, and I'm delighted to have been invited by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission to show you how to make a wreath that is totally sustainable and that will go onto the graves and not create damage by marking. So what I want to do is to show you the types of plant material that will work well to make this beautiful sustainable wreath. Now, the first one I'm going to show you is this. It's made out of myrtle. Myrtle is a tough, long-lasting evergreen that has beautiful berries that go black a little bit later in the year and will dry and still look terribly effective. And here we have placed the board behind, which fits beautifully, and with this can be easily attached, and then a handle can be made, so if it needs to be carried, it can be done so very easily. So myrtle is one of my best choices for this. Myrtus is the botanical name and can be found in many parts of the world. Wonderful. Now I'm going to go on and show you a second one. And this one here, this rather large, beautiful one, is made from Gaultheria. The common name is salal, but in many parts of the world it's termed lemon leaf. And it is an inexpensive, universal florist foliage that can be easily acquired. You want to make sure when getting Gaultheria that the leaves are not enormous. Sometimes the leaves are so big that it's difficult to use, but these have produced a beautiful large wreath so very easily. But I'm just going to say at this point, it takes a lot of plant material, but I'll have more about that later. The larger the plant material, to a certain extent, within limits, the easier it is to cover, because I'm going to take you on to now one that is made out of pittosporum. Now, pittosporum, again, is very easy to find. It grows quickly. It grows beautifully. And the plain green one is quite tough. It doesn't dry quite as well as the Gaultheria and the myrtle, but it will do so if that is what you've got available. But as you will see from here, I think there are 5 bunches of pittosporum, and it only covered this small area. And it's quite fiddly. You have to cut the stems short, and once you bunch them together, it takes an awful lot. Let me go on to the next one. This is another good one. This is Viburnum tinus, and it is a tough, easily grown foliage again, grows in most parts of the world, and it is very easy to use. It does get eaten by the insects from time to time, so just avoid the ones that have got too many holes in the leaves. But again, it has created a very nice, tough, long-lasting wreath that will dry well. Now, other options that I've got is this, which again, easy to source. But eucalyptus isn't the easiest, and it's really pretty expensive to create, because you want mostly tips. If you look closely here, you will see that further down from the tip, you get, then you have to use many sections on the tip, otherwise it would be completely unaffordable. It's not quite as attractive and much more difficult to create this lovely round shape, but it is something you could bear in mind. This particular eucalyptus is called Eucalyptus cinerea, and it is perhaps the easiest one to use. And what you're looking for when buying this is a nice, neat formation of leaves. You don't want big, straggly leaves. This works terribly well. And then other examples I would like to show you of what you might be able to find and what will work well. But the criteria is something that is beautiful to look at, as all these are, that is long-lasting, that is evergreen, and will look attractive when dried. First of all, I want to show you what you need to get started. And the ideal thing is long-lasting evergreen foliage. It just needs to be calm and green and very beautiful. And I'll take you through a few of them that I've got here today. and that which should be easy for you to find. It won't be easy for you to find them all, but some of them you should be able to. So I'm going to start with bay. Now, bay grows prolifically in many corners of the world. And this is a particularly nice one because the older branches get too tough, too difficult, too larger leaves. And if it's like my bay at home, this isn't my bay at home, it gets rather badly infested by insects. So this is a beauty. And we can take our short snippets like this and create a beautiful wreath using them. Bay dries so well, it's fragrant, just a joy to use, and I would heartily recommend it. But the fresher tips are even better. Now, the next one I'm going to show that I am told grows well in many of the war grave cemeteries around the world, and this is called Arbutus anido. And it's something that it's not only produced these gorgeous leaves, but it also has red fruits, which are actually edible. And although you won't be using those, it's a bonus when planting in your garden. So this Arbutus anido, again, you would take off a top section here, deep into the next leaf, and then you can get 2 or 3 pieces out of each stem. Because I must just say at this point that creating wreaths does use a lot of plant material. You need perhaps more, even double what you start off by thinking would be sufficient. So just bear that in mind. But you can use, and this is a good point to say that, because here I've got something that is so prolific, and I don't think anybody minds people having a little bit of their ivy. You just ask, and they would always, I'm sure, be say, of course you can. Now, this ivy is, it's starting to bear fruits. And an important point is that ivy, when it produces these fruits, which are then fertilized, produce black berries, which are evident from October through to late February. And they are fantastic. And there is nothing more beautiful than a wreath made with ivy with those beautiful nodding black fruits. So ivy is a good one. You don't want the trails of ivy because they wouldn't work at all. You want the bushy ivy, which is, as I said, prolific just about everywhere. One of my favourites. Now I'm going to come on to something that's not quite as good so I can explain exactly what you're looking for. This is called Nandina, and it is from the bamboo family. And why do I not like this as much? I think because it's too sparse. And also it's flat backed. When you look at this, the arbutus, do you see that the leaves go around the stem, therefore giving it more depth, so much easier to use, create a beautiful, luscious wreath. So the Nandina, yes, you could group many stems together, but it'd be hard work. So that's what you perhaps try to avoid for your first attempt, to build up your confidence that something's going to work well. So I'm going to pass on to this wonderful foliage, which is myrtus, or myrtle as its common name is. And you can see how the fruits are developing, and these will turn black as well and give an extra beautiful dimension to your wreath. It is quite a small leaf. Compare the size of the leaf to the ivy. So you need a lot. You do need a lot. But it is so gorgeous, and again, it's fragrant. And what could be nicer? I really love this one. So those are some examples. When you are thinking of eucalyptus, which I've got here, because eucalyptus has quite a long growing season where the tips are so weak that they do not last and they don't dry very well either. So if you are using eucalyptus, get branches that are perhaps later in the season. So it is June, July that's the growing season, so avoid it then. And it's also quite expensive. So as I've said before, you need a lot. So perhaps not the perfect one unless you've got trees in your garden or trees in the cemetery and you can cut and use. So eucalyptus, bay, arbutus, ivy and myrtle, all perfect things to use. And I'm going to show you some finished wreaths shortly, which show you other examples of what works so easily and will give you pleasure to make. So now I'm going to show you how to make your sustainable wreath. And it is really very easy, but there are a few things you need to get started. And I want to also show you what not to get and why. So first of all, you need flexible stems. And flexible stems are usually available in the spring when they have not put on woody growth. And willow is ideal. It really is. But there are other options if you can't get a source of willow. So salix being willow, of course. So this willow wreath is being made from older stems, and it is much more difficult to do, but it's still achievable. Because what you do is you take various stems, you soak them, and even if it's old, by soaking, you get more flexibility. And then you create it into a circle and tuck the ends into each other. I could add twine and make extra security, but I avoid using a real wire. I don't want to use any metal in here because I want it 100% compostable. And this is tucked in, as I've said, and then I've also, to give extra security, just binding with a little bit of twine to make it stay in place. Now, this is going to be completely hidden. Something so nice as this is a bit of a shame, really. But do remember that if you wanted to, you could use this again and again and again. You can just take off the foliage, store this, and the following year, out it comes again, and you can make another beautiful wreath. So once it's like that, and this is one that I did earlier, I'm going to show you how to cover it with moss that has come from a sustainable source. You don't want to go and hunting for moss. Just go to the florist, go to the flower markets, and just see if they will let you have a bag of sustainable moss. But I've got two examples here of what not to use. This one's made out of straw, but it's actually wrapped around with nylon. This one's made out of seagrass, but what they have both in common is that they're too sturdy to get a wreath that's got a lovely flow and feel to it. It's just, this is a beauty, but it's just too thick. And the straw, too small, too thick, don't like it at all. So that goes over there, and I come back and start to work on this one. Now, what can you use if you're not using willow? Cornice is something that you could work with. I say it puts on a lot of growth in the spring, lovely colours. Again, what a pity we're going to hide it, but you can keep bringing it back. Something like vine or akebia, it's too thin. It doesn't wrap, it doesn't support quite well enough. But trails of ivy, now that's a good one. And they're very flexible. And the thing is, it doesn't matter if it's wonky. It really doesn't. It doesn't have to be this beautiful circular shape, because when you put your moss on and when you put your foliage on, it'll form a beautiful circle. So I'm using twine. As I say, there's no wire coming anywhere near this. And I'm just going to start it off by making a knot at any point on the wreath that you want, like that, and again, like this. So that's my starting point. But first of all, I'm going to use the moss, which I mentioned. So this, from my sustainable source, I'm going to take, and I'm going to make balls of moss and then place them on here and wrap firmly round. You want them not too big and not too small. I think about tangerine size is about a good size to achieve. And there you just make like this. And it's really nice. If you find, occasionally you might find a creepy crawly in it, but never mind, you just pick it up and take it outside, let it find another home. But it's all usually quite nice and clear. If there are sharp little bits in it, I'm trying to find a sharp bit, but of course, oh, there's a sharp bit. The reason I'm showing you this is that you just literally, that would be too difficult to incorporate, too stiff, hard to put into a ball. So just put it aside and just find the pieces that are easier to work with. So let's start with these 4. Now I better make it 5. Let me make it 5, a nice odd number, and show you how easy it is. Try and manipulate it so it's quite firm, so that you've got an, And the other advantage of using moss is that not only does it just make a softer, rounder form, but it'll actually, because it's damp, it will help your plant material to last longer. So taking that, I place it on top and I squish it into more of a oblong rather than a round, and then take the twine and take it over once, pull firmly and round again, so that that is firmly in place. Easier. And then you take the second ball, and the trick here is to push it quite firmly against the first piece, because then you've got a pretty even covering. When doing this for the first time, you might find that you get something that looks a bit like a boa constrictor with the bumps, but try and even it out, but it's not essential. And then in a go, and round and round. Now, as you will notice, this moss is not bright green. It's a lovely, subtle, earthy colour. And that is absolutely great. And as mentioned, you will not actually be seeing the moss. It will be covered by your foliage. So round you go, and you just go regularly round to make a nice covering. And if you wish to trim it, and with your scissors, very easy. Oh, it's rather nice actually. Take it round like that and create a smoother shape. So round again like that, and round and round. And there it goes. You could cut off lengths. It might be easier. I always do it on the reel though. Don't know why. So, and then we go all the way round before we add our foliage. So here we are at the point where we've got the moss all the way round, and this is going to be a large wreath. So the plant material can be a little bit larger. And don't use the pittosporum here. There are pittosporums that have got a larger leaf, and that would work. But the pittosporum tenuifolium that I showed earlier would be too small for this. But skimmia here is absolutely beautiful. This one is a florist skimmia, and it's called Q Green, and it is just wonderful because it's got these little buds that are going to develop into small whitish flowers. So how do you do it? How do you start? Well, wherever you start, you need to take a little bunch. There's my little bunch. Notice how short the stems are. And I will show you shortly how to do it with Gaultheria salal and to make it work for you. But there's a small little bunch, and I'm going to place it on the top, like so. And each one that I place, I overlap by about 50% over the previous one. And then I'm just going to take that round there before I take it over very firmly. So you see it's on the top. Pull it round like so, down. It doesn't matter if it goes over the leaves. It really doesn't. So you can just take it and bind it into place. I tend to take about 2 turns for each placement. So that is on the top. But I want to show you at this point what we need to do. We need to get it so that it is lush. So we need to place them at the top and at the bottom, and I'll show you how to do it. So the next little bunch, which is here, I cluster together, and I'm going to put those at the top, down about 50%, as mentioned, and then just taking them round, like so. And with this, because you're not using real wire, which is what is commonly used for Christmas wreaths, which supports the you have to be quite firm because you don't want any to slip out. So just practice using your muscles and take that through and around. And again, and then it came down about 50%, and then I take a further bunch. And this time I place it on the inside. And again, a little bit further down, taking it round there and over. And I don't like string. String slips, and it's much nicer to use just a rustic twine. And there it is, nicely like that. So there it is. You've got coverage from the side. It's lovely in the inside and will frame the sign here so well. And then I go back again and I take the next little group and I place it centrally on the top. Bind it in, 50% over, and take it round. And yes, it doesn't matter, as I said, going over the leaves. Like that. Oh, that's a bit too strong. So too many muscles there. And round like that on the top. And then my last little bunch that I've prepared, I go now just regularly front, top, inside, front, top, inside, and work around the wreath until you've got a beautiful covering of gorgeous plant material that will be a joy to view. So there we are. Now, if you weren't using skimmer, and skimmer is expensive, there's 5 bunches there already. So that's going to be an expensive one unless you've got a source in your garden. But do remember that it needs an acid soil. Otherwise it tends to go a bit yellow and not as happy. Now the butas, if you were using this, you see the long stem obviously doesn't work. You can't use long stems like this. So you take out the tip like that. So that's one, nice little bunch. And then you cut the top just like at an angle, slight angle like that, and in again. Now I'm going to try and get 3 out of this. So I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to go there. And then you cluster them together like that, and then you take it round in exactly the same way as I did with the skimmer. Now, if you were going to use Gaultheria, this has got quite a nice, neat little leaf. And you've got to be careful that if you use leaves that are much bigger, you need to have a correspondingly big frame on which to install it. Otherwise, you'll lose the hole in the middle, which is so important for displaying what you're doing. So there's one little piece like that, short stem. I don't waste any of the leaves. I'd say, as I said before, I would actually bind them in rather than taking them off. And then I come on to, I've got a whopper here. Now that leaf is big. So what we do, you don't have to discard it because all foliage to me is precious. I love foliage. I think I love foliage as much as I love flowers, which is saying something. I'm going to take that and I'm just going to literally make it smaller. And because it's a tough old leaf, it's not going to go brown at the edges, and it will just work within what you're doing, the framework of what you're doing so much more easily. And you can do the same. And if there are insects bites, occasionally, yes, you're going to get insects biting their way along a stem of Gaultheria, you can just cut out the holes, and there you are. You've got a magic stem. And so you can just work with whatever you've got to create that framework. And it is such a joy to be able to do something that is creative and would be appreciated by anyone worldwide. And as I said before, and I speak from the bottom of my heart, the incentive by David Richardson and a little bit of help from myself is creating something that is so nice, so good, and will give pleasure to so many people, both living and those that aren't. So enjoy making a wreath.